Have you ever had one of those moments where you're completely convinced something meaningful is about to happen, only to be met with absolutely nothing? Well, that's exactly what happened to me last weekend, and I'm still trying to process it all. I've been living with my roommate, Alex, for about 8 months now. We found each other through a mutual friend who knew we were both looking for a place. The apartment isn't anything special, just your typical two-bedroom in the city with walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's alarm clock, but somehow thick enough to muffle the sound of the garbage truck that comes at 5 a.m. every Tuesday. But it's home, and we've made it our own. Alex is what you'd call the quintessential good guy, the kind of person who remembers to replace the toilet paper roll and actually does his dishes before they start growing their own ecosystem in the sink. He works in marketing, has an impressive collection of graphic tees with obscure band references, and can quote almost every line from The Office. He's also undeniably straight, something he casually mentions in conversations about dating apps and past relationships. I, on the other hand, came out in college and have been navigating the sometimes wonderful, often confusing world of dating men ever since. Our friendship developed naturally over shared takeout dinners and complaints about our landlord's reluctance to fix the perpetually dripping shower. We discovered a mutual love for bad sci-fi movies, true crime documentaries, and those cooking shows where chefs have to make gourmet meals out of convenience store ingredients. There's something uniquely bonding about watching someone create a 5-star dish out of Cheetos and canned tuna while you're eating microwave ramen on your couch. Let me explain why this matters. Living with someone creates a strange intimacy that's different from any other relationship. You see each other at your worst, bleary-eyed before coffee, stressed about work deadlines, or dancing wildly to guilty pleasure songs when you think no one's watching. Alex and I had developed the comfortable rhythm that comes with good roommates. We respected each other's space, but enjoyed each other's company. There was no awkwardness, no tension, just two people coexisting peacefully in a shared space. At least, that's what I thought until movie night happened. It started innocently enough. It was a Friday evening, and I had just gotten home from work, exhausted from a week of dealing with demanding clients and a boss who seemed to think urgent was the only priority level that existed. I collapsed on our couch, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when Alex walked in with 2 bags of groceries. "Rough week?" he asked, setting the bags on our kitchen counter. I let out a dramatic sigh. You have no idea. If I have to hear "we need this yesterday" one more time, I might actually lose it. Alex laughed as he unpacked the groceries, placing a 6-pack of craft beer in the fridge. "Well, I have no plans tonight. Movie night might help take your mind off things." Something about the way he suggested it felt different. Maybe it was his tone, or maybe it was just my imagination working overtime after a stressful week. Either way, I felt a little flutter of excitement that I immediately tried to suppress. This was Alex, my straight roommate who had never given any indication he was interested in me as anything more than a friend. And yet, there I was, reading into a simple movie night invitation like it was some grand romantic gesture. "Yeah, that sounds perfect," I replied, trying to keep my voice casual. "What did you have in mind?" This led to a 15-minute debate about movie genres. Alex was pushing for an action thriller, something with explosions and minimal plot to follow. I was more in the mood for something with actual character development. We went back and forth, scrolling through streaming services and vetoing each other's suggestions until we finally compromised on a critically acclaimed indie film that had been on both our watch lists for months. It was supposed to be this beautiful, heart-wrenching story about 2 childhood friends reconnecting later in life and discovering their relationship had always been deeper than they realized. In retrospect, the irony of our movie choice isn't lost on me. Once we'd settled on the film, we transformed our living room into the perfect movie-watching environment. Alex dimmed the lights while I arranged an assortment of snacks on our coffee table: popcorn, half butter, half caramel because we could never agree, those chocolate-covered pretzels that somehow always disappear first, and an array of gummy candies that would probably give a dentist a panic attack. Alex contributed his specialty: nachos with 3 different kinds of cheese and jalapenos that were always just a little too spicy, but too delicious to pass up. There's something about preparing for a movie night that feels almost ceremonial. The gathering of comfort foods, the arrangement of pillows and blankets, the negotiation of temperature. Alex always runs hot, while I'm perpetually cold. It's like creating a little sanctuary where the outside world can't reach you for a couple of hours. And as we settled onto opposite ends of our couch, I couldn't help but notice how the space between us seemed smaller than usual. Was he sitting closer? Had I moved toward the middle without realizing it? These are the questions that plague overthinking minds like mine. The movie started, and we fell into our usual pattern of commentary. Alex has this habit of predicting plot twists within the first 10 minutes of any film. He's almost always wrong, but that doesn't stop him from trying. I tend to notice small details in the background or costume choices that most people miss. Together, we make a surprisingly good movie-watching duo, filling in the gaps in each other's observations. $10 says they were secretly in love as teenagers, Alex said around a mouthful of nachos, not even 15 minutes into the film. I rolled my eyes. That's not exactly a wild prediction for a movie literally described as a romance. Yeah, but I'm saying they already knew it back then. They just never said anything. Something about his comment made me glance over at him, but his eyes were fixed on the screen, illuminated by the blue light of the TV. Was there something meaningful in what he'd said, or was I just projecting my own thoughts onto an innocent observation? As the movie progressed, I found myself becoming more invested in the story than I'd expected. The two main characters had this beautiful chemistry that felt authentic and earned. Their reconnection was filled with those small moments of recognition, the way one would laugh at a joke before it was even finished, or how they could communicate volumes with just a look. It reminded me of real friendship, of the shorthand you develop with someone you truly know. About halfway through the film, there's this scene where the two characters are sitting on a beach at sunset. They're talking about all the years they missed in each other's lives, and one of them says, "I think a part of me has been waiting for you this whole time." It's the kind of line that could come across as cheesy in a lesser film, but the actor delivered it with such genuine vulnerability that I felt it like a physical ache in my chest. I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't immediately notice Alex had gone completely still beside me. When I did look over, I saw something in his expression I couldn't quite read, a softness, maybe, or a kind of quiet contemplation. Our eyes met briefly, and there was this charged second where it felt like something important was happening. Then he smiled, a quick, almost nervous gesture, and returned his attention to the screen. For the rest of the movie, I was hyper-aware of his presence beside me. Every time our hands accidentally brushed in the popcorn bowl, every laugh we shared at a funny scene, every collective intake of breath during tense moments, it all felt heightened somehow, like the volume had been turned up on our interactions. The film built to this beautiful, emotional climax where the two friends finally admitted their feelings for each other in the rain, because of course it was raining. Movie confessions always happen in dramatic weather. It was the kind of scene that makes your heart race and your eyes tear up, even if you try to play it cool. I could feel myself getting emotional and tried to discreetly wipe my eyes, hoping Alex wouldn't notice. "Are you crying?" he whispered, leaning slightly closer. "No," I lied, then immediately confessed, "Maybe a little. It's just, they wasted so much time not saying what they really felt, you know?" Alex didn't respond right away, and when I glanced over, he was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. "Yeah," he finally said, his voice softer than usual. "I know exactly what you mean." The moment felt weighted with possibility. In the dim light of our living room, with the emotional crescendo of the film surrounding us, it seemed like we were on the edge of something important. I found myself holding my breath, waiting for what exactly? I wasn't sure, but my heart was racing with anticipation. And then the credits started to roll. The spell was broken as abruptly as it had begun. The music swelled, names scrolled up the screen, and that magical bubble of potential that had enveloped us just seconds ago popped like it had never existed at all. I waited for Alex to say something, anything, about the movie, about the moment we'd just shared, about the palpable tension that still hung in the air between us. But he didn't. Instead, he stretched, checked his phone, and said, "That was pretty good. Better than I expected." Pretty good? That's all he had to say. We'd just watched this incredibly moving story about friendship evolving into something deeper, shared this intense emotional experience, and all he could offer was pretty good. I felt like I was experiencing emotional whiplash. Yeah, I managed, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. The acting was really strong. Totally. "Hey, do we have any of that ice cream left from last week?" And just like that, he was up and heading to the kitchen, the moment completely lost. I sat there, still wrapped in my blanket, trying to process what had just happened, or more accurately, what hadn't happened. Had I imagined the whole thing? Was the emotional resonance I'd felt between us just a product of the movie's influence and my own wishful thinking? I wanted to say something, to ask if he'd felt it too, to see if there was anything to the way he'd looked at me during that beach scene. But what would I even say? Hey, for a minute there, I thought we were having a moment. Was that real, or am I just projecting my feelings onto our friendship because we watched a romantic movie? There's no way to ask that without risking the comfortable dynamic we'd built over months of living together. So instead, I said nothing. I accepted the bowl of ice cream he offered when he returned from the kitchen, and we sat in what felt to me like the most deafening silence I'd ever experienced, though it probably only lasted a minute or two. What did you think of the ending? I finally asked, desperate to break the tension that only I seemed to feel. Alex shrugged, scrolling through his phone again. It was nice. A bit predictable maybe, but satisfying. Predictable? I couldn't help the incredulity in my voice. You didn't think there was anything surprising about how their relationship evolved? He looked up, seemingly confused by my intensity. I mean, it was pretty clear from the beginning they were going to end up together. That's how these movies work, right? I wanted to argue that it wasn't just these movies. It was about real connections between people, about the courage it takes to be vulnerable with someone you care about the risk and reward of honesty. But I could see from his expression that we weren't having the same conversation. For him, it had just been a good movie on a Friday night. For me, it had been a mirror reflecting possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to fully consider until that moment. Right, I said instead. Classic formula. The rest of the evening passed in a strange limbo. We finished our ice cream, made small talk about weekend plans, and eventually, Alex said he was tired and headed to his room. I stayed on the couch long after he'd gone, replaying the evening in my mind, trying to determine if I'd completely misread the situation. Here's what I've been thinking about in the days since movie night. Maybe the most painful silences are the ones filled with all the things we're afraid to say. Alex and I have continued our normal routines, sharing meals, passing each other in the hallway, sending funny memes. But there's a new awareness on my part, a heightened consciousness of the space between what we say and what remains unspoken. I keep wondering if I should just be brave and say something. After all, isn't that what the movie was trying to teach us? That life is too short for missed connections and unexpressed feelings? But then I remember that real life isn't a carefully scripted indie film. In real life, confessions don't always lead to rain-soaked embraces and swelling music. Sometimes they lead to awkwardness and changed dynamics, and having to find a new apartment because you made your roommate uncomfortable. So for now, I'm living in this strange in-between space where movie night has become both a vivid memory and a constant question mark. Did something almost happen, or was it all in my head? Does Alex ever think about it? Or has he completely forgotten that moment when our eyes met during the beach scene? Is there a parallel universe where I was braver and said what I was feeling? And if so, how did that version of the story end? I don't have answers to any of these questions. All I know is that yesterday, Alex texted me from work asking if I wanted to do another movie night this weekend. He's already suggested an action film this time. Something with explosions and car chases and probably very little emotional depth. Part of me wants to suggest another romance, to see if we can recreate that moment of connection, to test if it was real or imagined. But another part of me is afraid of both confirmation and denial, afraid of disrupting the comfortable friendship we've built. What I'm learning from all this is that sometimes the most meaningful conversations are the ones we never have. There's a special kind of intimacy in shared silence, in the things we almost say but don't, in the possibilities that exist in the space between words. Maybe that's enough. Or maybe someday, when the timing is right and the risk feels worth taking, I'll find the courage to speak up when the credits roll, to turn to Alex and say, "There's something I've been meaning to tell you." Until then, I'll be here, overthinking movie nights and missed opportunities, wondering if my straight roommate ever thinks about the conversation we didn't have when the credits rolled and the real world came rushing back in. Because that's the thing about real life. Unlike movies, it doesn't end when the story reaches its emotional peak. It continues, messy and complicated, and full of moments that might mean everything or nothing at all. And sometimes, the most important parts of our stories are the ones that happen after the credits roll, in the quiet moments when we're left to make sense of what we've experienced and what it might mean for all the scenes yet to come. So here I am, preparing for another movie night, another opportunity for something to happen or not happen, another evening of sitting beside someone who feels simultaneously so familiar and so mysterious. And isn't that just the perfect metaphor for all human connection? We think we know each other, but there are always depths we haven't explored, always conversations we haven't had, always possibilities waiting just beyond what we can see. Maybe that's what makes it all so terrifying and so beautiful at the same time. Total _char_count, 18,214.